This lesson extends our understanding from our most recent lesson on the Columbian Exchange, and we are going to look at the explanation of causes of the Columbian Exchange and the effects on the Eastern and Western hemispheres. The question that we're examining is, how did economic developments and new transoceanic connections affect social structures in different parts of the world in the time period of 1450 to 1750? The Columbian Exchange, our main ideas that we're looking at is to analyze the causes, as well as assess the environmental and cultural effects of the Columbian Exchange on Afro-Eurasia and on the Americas. What I'd like you to do is to stop the video, jot down a few of the meals that you really enjoy having. Is there anything that's making that stand out? Is there anything that makes it special? And it could be anything from a snack to a special occasion meal. We're going to come back to this in just a few. Some of the motivations or causes to establish these new trade routes happen a long time before the first people crossed and then settled. Is that in the 12th and 13th century, we see the 200 Years' War, or sometimes called the Crusades, where Europeans were trying to recapture control over the Eastern Mediterranean lands, or the Holy Lands. And in that long war, they get a taste of luxury goods from Asia. This will not be forgotten for hundreds of years. By the 15th century, those maritime technologies are making ocean-going trade possible for Europeans. They're able to put all of the pieces together and start to have these long-distance trade routes. And in 1492, toward the end of the 15th century, we see the Reconquista complete. This is limiting the access to overland trade routes. The Reconquista was the formal expulsion of Muslims and Jews from the Iberian Peninsula after the Spanish had conquered all of the land and reunified it under one new Spanish Catholic monarchy. Some of the economic motivations: initially, it's about spice. It's about finding a direct way to get to the spice routes. It's cutting out the middlemen, but also a need to avoid the overland trade routes that were somewhat challenging for some of the Spanish to get to, because they just kicked out all of the previous Muslims, the previous people that had lived in the Iberian Peninsula. Some of the other factors are going to include what we often refer to as the 3 Gs: gold, gospel, and glory. They're looking for economic wealth. They're looking to spread Christianity and convert non-Christians to this form of belief system. And they're looking for personal glory. They're looking for a way to advance and have a social mobility. Ultimately, we're going to see that drive for the economic motivation to be huge in terms of the next 300 years. Please stop the video and jot down what you think are the 3 most significant food items traveling from east to west, and the 3 most significant food items that you are seeing traveling from west to east. It is important that you are able to use these specific items when you are asked to show what you know. Some of the demographic and social changes that affect the people of the Americas is the introduction of diseases. Now, disease transfer happened both ways. It went from the Americas into Afro-Eurasia, but the most devastating disease that occurred in this transfer was the introduction of smallpox from the people of Europe into the people of the Americas. The people of the Americas had no immunity to this. They had not had exposure to the types of animals that Europeans, Africans, and Asians had contact with for centuries, millennia, that also helped with this buildup of some antibodies. The people of the Americas didn't have this. And we see approximately 95% of the population of the Americas dying from this pathogen. In this passage, pause and consider the impact that disease is having on the people that William Bradford is writing about. In your notes, frame out a response to the prompt that you see. With the decline in population in the Americas, the Europeans still have that tremendous drive. They still had all those causes for economic advantage, and they sought out a new source of people to utilize those people in the Americas. And they turn toward the people of Africa, predominantly West Africa. You see this highlighted in red on the right-hand side of the slide. We see a dramatic shift in the social condition of enslavement, where we see movement across the hemispheres, the breaking apart of the family unit, the loss of legal rights, as well as a social position that is now inherited. The UN estimates that as many as 15 million Africans were forcibly removed into the transatlantic slave trade. And of those 15 million people, the survivors largely were brought to the Caribbean and South America. About 12% or so were brought into North America, and approximately 3% of those enslaved Africans were brought into the European continent. Remember this first question? Show what you know. And a great way to reframe this how did is that it ends up being a substitute for the evaluate the extent to which. So pick up the mastery check or the check for understanding, and please respond to that before progressing to your next lesson, which ties in